Okay, so I don't use video very often, but I thought in this context, speaking face to face or to camera would be a lot easier than writing out a blog post or a Facebook post and watching comments unfold. Um, it's been a very short period since the snap election was called, a very intense period. There's been a lot of healthy political discussion and some less healthy than others. But we're almost there. There's 2 days to go, and I thought I'll just have a short discussion about why I'm voting Liberal Democrat in my constituency of Somerton and Frome this week in 2 days' time. So, as a bit of background, first and foremost, I would say I'm a socialist. My great grandfather was a communist revolutionary in Germany. He fought against fascism in Germany, Spain, France, um, and his daughter came to England as a refugee in the 1930s to escape conflict, essentially. And she became a Labour councillor. She settled here and spent the rest of her life championing social causes, social justice, the arts, health, equality. And these are values and politics that have very much shaped me. Now, you may think on the basis of that my vote in 2 days' time would be for Jeremy Corbyn. That makes a lot of sense. And personally, I like Jeremy Corbyn. I think he offers a fresh perspective against the status quo, and I like a lot of what the new Labour manifesto contains. However, I will not be voting for Jeremy Corbyn in 2 days' time, and the reasons for this are threefold, really. First and foremost, our current electoral system means that you are not voting for a party, you're not voting for a leader, you're not voting for the person you want to run this country, and not even necessarily the party you want to run this country. You're voting for your representative in Parliament. My area, Somerton Frome, is traditionally not a very strong Labour area. The second point is that your vote only counts towards the winning vote, the winning candidate. It's very good for polling, for parties to know what their member base is and how they're polling nationally. But ultimately, only the winning vote counts. We have a first past the post system, which is fundamentally broken. And again, in this area, traditionally, Labour haven't fielded very strongly, which is kind of my third point, really. Somerton Frome is historically a strong Liberal Democrat area. If you look historically, yes, at the last elections, there was a quite significant defeat to the Conservative MP, but they still polled second, way above third, which was UKIP, fourth Green, and fifth Labour. Historically, the last four general elections before that, although it was by a slim majority, there was a Liberal Democrat MP elected. And that's what my gut's saying is looking at history, that's where, if we want to get rid of a Tory MP, and God knows I do, that's where my vote should lie. Now, Labour are polling strongly nationally. There's no doubt about that. Since the snap election was called, May has faltered ridiculously. Corbyn has come stronger despite quite systematic initially neglect and misquoting from the right wing media in this country. But it seemed very unlikely that this trend, this pattern of support for Jeremy Corbyn will be reflected locally. If you look at the polls, the majority of enthusiasm for Jeremy Corbyn is with the youth vote. This is not a young constituency. It tends to be, on average, a lot older than the rest. It's also a very rural area, whereas Labour poll a lot stronger in urban areas. And what all this goes to tell us is that our system's broken. We're a number of people are going to go to the polls in 2 days' time, and their vote won't count because they're voting for Greens, they're voting for Labour, they're voting for either Lib Dem or Conservative, and if their candidate doesn't come in, they don't really get a say. Our electoral system is way past its sell-by date. It reflects a two-party state from the 19th century and before. And we desperately need electoral reform. There's a number of websites and campaigns promoting this. Our Lib Dem candidate, Mark Blackburn, I'm not sure about the other candidates, has pledged to support electoral reform, particularly with the support for proportional representation, which means that all parties, red, green, yellow, blue, purple, that's democracy, will have a voice in a fairer voting system. Now, I've been involved, as a hands up statement here, I've been involved in a local campaign group that's been trying to encourage people to vote tactically in the forthcoming election. Now, there's a lot of people that don't like this, and we're certainly not telling you what to do. What we're trying to do is give you perspective and try to rally behind the idea that the one thing Somerton Frome doesn't need is another 5 years of a Tory MP. Now, I have nothing personally against David Warburton, but I personally despise. That's a bit strong, isn't it? But I despise his party and what it stands for, and the way it affects our society and the people within its society, the way it leaves large swathes of our population behind, the way it removes equality of opportunity for all. And there's very little certainly in David Warburton's voting record that leads me to think he wouldn't do the same again. I desperately hope that Theresa May doesn't have a majority government by the end of this week. But the reality is, again, the numbers suggest that a Liberal Democrat candidate is the only realistic way that we can challenge Theresa May, or rather, David Warburton in this seat. I want to just counter some arguments that have come against us. I'm not a Liberal Democrat stooge. I've not been placed here. The work we're doing isn't there to support the Liberal Democrat Party per se. What it's trying to do is support the candidate we feel is best placed to oppose David Warburton in this seat based on historical data. Now, I've come to know Mark Blackburn, our candidate, and actually he's a very nice chap that shares a lot of the values I have. So I have complete faith that should he be elected at the end of this week, that he will be a very strong candidate or MP that will represent his constituents very well indeed. But as I said, in an ideal situation, I would be voting Labour. I voted Green at the last election. I don't, but this is too important. This is a snap election. We haven't had time to organise a progressive candidate, a unity candidate. We're stuck. We have the choices available to us within the system we have available to us, and unfortunately, that system is stacked massively in the Conservative Party's favour. More so if they push through boundary changes, constituency boundary changes, if they get into power. So that's my perspective. I'm not telling you how to vote, but I'm telling you why I think it's important that this election you think very strongly about what you're voting for, and particularly what you're voting against. By all means, vote with your heart, if that's what your heart says. I'm voting with my head because I believe that the Liberal Democrats are the only alternative in our current electoral system. So I hope you will too. I hope you, if anything, this has given you some food for thought. And I hope however we wake up on the 9th of June, that we do not have a Tory government, and that we can sort of bring together these disparate voices from the left that all want the same thing. But above all, we want to get rid of our Conservative government.